bald guy who spoke on and on
Wearing a
about
suit.
TRAC. Leave that part out.
Wearing a suit.
The meeting was for one issue. It was about Brad renewing his contract and was there a salary and the subcommittees, and they argued and yelled. And if you want to watch sausage be made, you will never eat sausage again. Watch that meeting, right? And that was really what the meeting was. It was just the one issue. I was surprised because I thought with Brad being up for the discussion that all the red shirts would show up and cause trouble, but they didn't. They weren't there at all. That's all that happened last month. I'll add then that we know there's the two events coming up. The charrette for 62nd Street is this Friday, if you've signed up. And then I'll let you talk about Safe Streets. That's all for my report. I can pass over to Gloria for the Forward Pinellas report.
Okay. Well, and there's not that much to report on Forward Pinellas. Yes, you're right. On the 31st is the Safe Streets, which we sent out the materials to all of you. I don't know if anyone else is interested in going to that, but I'm going to that. But the actual Forward Pinellas meeting, which was really right after we had our last TRAC meeting, was just a very standard kind of Forward Pinellas meeting, although there were a couple of interesting things that they did cover, one of which there was somebody there from the census talking about the fact that they're going to be starting the whole, census gathering, and so it's very important for people to participate so that we get all the resources that we need here, because that's how they divvy up where money goes where. And also, apparently, it pays pretty well for people who want to be census workers, so there's some additional materials over on that. And then just some of, it was really just a lot of the planning, again, continuing to plan for the next 20 years and so forth. But as always, transit does weigh very heavily into everything that the Forward Pinellas is talking about. They aren't just talking about the roads. And even among the citizens committee there are a lot of people that are very pro-transit, and so we're always asking about what happens to pedestrians. There are a number of people who are also very pro-bicycle, which overlaps obviously with buses as well. And so it's a very good group that is doing God's work, as they say, the same kinds of things that we are moving forward, other than just car drivers' wants.
Thanks, Gloria. It's a good report. Then moving on, Brad, welcome.
Hey, thanks.
And glad to hear you were rehired.
Yeah.
I just gave the board report.
Okay, good. Barely.
Then if we can move on to item 5, the first is the approval of the minutes. Did everyone get a chance to read through the minutes? You were all emailed them. They look good to me. Is there any any corrections or amendments? Then if so, if they can be approved to stand, can I have a motion for that? Someone give me a motion to approve the minutes. Andrea?
I'll second.
In a second, there we are. Chelsea. Then all in favor of approving the minutes as written? Aye. Any opposed? So carried. Then Heather, you're going to give us a presentation on the Advantage Pinellas. Good to see you.
Which
Welcome.
Heather also presented at Forward Pinellas at that meeting.
Yeah.
So if the two of us nod off, that's why.
No, but again, a very important, like I said, a very important function that, they want to hear the same things that.
Integration of
Oh, this is a really full room. Good to see everybody. So this is our transit development plan, and what this is a state required, it's required for us to get our funding from the state of Florida, planning document that looks at what kind of projects we will be doing over the next 10 years and how we will implement those, and then includes a vision for future service. And you'll see the title here says Advantage Pinellas Transit. So this is the first time ever we have co-branded this with another required planning document, the Long Range Transportation Plan, which takes a 25-year view. And that is done by Forward Pinellas, which is our metropolitan planning organization. So what we did is we did some outreach together, and then we also made sure that what's the first 10 years of that long range 25-year plan are consistent with what our plan is saying and showing. So the TDP, as I said, is required, and we do what's called a major update, which is what this is that I'm showing you today, every 5 years. And then in the interim years, we submit a progress report. And so we tell the state how we've improved or how we've made progress on everything we said we were going to do. this is kind of duplicate. So here at PSTA, we have what we call the PSTA scorecard, and it outlines our guiding principles. They're very similar to goals, and so these are focus areas that we work on trying to improve. These include community support, financial stability, customer satisfaction, employee engagement, and then a commitment to performance, so making sure our service is performing well. For our public outreach, we did a large onboard survey that is statistically valid, and people rode, some of you may have taken the survey, rode the bus routes through the month of March in 2018, and they documented where people were going to and from, some demographic information on our riders, just a lot of information that helps us do our planning. We also had an online survey through SurveyMonkey, and then we did a lot of outreach at transit terminals, at public meetings, with what you all actually, or those of you that were here then, participated in the Get On Board game. And so we had boxes and we gave you 10 fake dollars, and you could put your money towards what improvements are most important to you. So things like more frequency, those kind of things. And then we also conducted focus groups with our bus operators and our customer service representatives to get an idea of what they see firsthand on the road every day. And then in terms of that Advantage Pinellas outreach, so the Forward Pinellas does a lot of outreach with the broader community. They're not as focused on maybe a car rider or a transit rider, they're just looking at the whole community. And so from that information, we learned that there's people in our community that want to have more express bus service and more trolley service and some other things that weren't as much of a priority for our riders. And from our riders, and this is obviously really important to us because you all and all of the riders ride many days a week, and this is most of our trips. They'd like to see more frequent service, later evening service, more weekend service, and faster, more direct routes. Those are the top four things that they were most interested in. So that's obviously really important to us in our planning, and for us to kind of do some, even with the same funding levels, do kind of continuous improvement looking at those areas. From the onboard survey, some kind of interesting information. I just pulled out a few points that I think are really interesting. That 40% of trips are to and from work. That 64% of our fixed route regular riders use the service, well, they are regular riders because they use the service 5 days a week or more. And then kind of a little different scenario on our trolleys because they are serving the hotels. So they're getting people to work at the hotels, but they're also serving visitors. And some of our hotels have partnerships with us where visitors staying there can use their key card to ride for free, and then other visitors just enjoy the trolley in general. So for that service, we actually had 35% that were recreational sightseeing. So we're definitely seeing visitors riding. And then the piece of information that I think is most interesting from this is that about 30% of those trolley riders said they'd either instead use a TNC like Uber or Lyft, or they wouldn't take the trip. So from the TNC side, those are more cars on the road. So, you know, that's definitely a nice thing to see, that they're riding the trolleys. And then 16% would not make this trip, so maybe they wouldn't go to the restaurant or they wouldn't spend their money and those kind of things. So I think that's just some interesting information. As part of the TDP, we look at peer agencies. We just are really looking to make sure that we're not way off in any of the metrics with the peer agencies. Here, they looked at Columbus, Palm-Tran, Louisville, Indianapolis, Jacksonville, and then there's a mystery line that I'm not sure what it is because it's cut off. But we look at some Florida agencies, but basically agencies that have a similar population they serve. They run a similar number of routes and service hours, and so we just make sure that kind of we're in line. We are the red dotted line, and so we're kind of in the middle in terms of trips per revenue hour. And really, I'd say for most of the peer analysis, we tracked very, very similar or high. One of our highest is actually, I can't remember, sorry. And then we look at alternatives. The maintenance plan is a plan that's just maintaining our existing services, so kind of our existing revenue streams, and then our BRT. And so we have the BRT planned, we're just waiting on federal funding, and then we'll be able to start constructing that. Scenario 2 is an optimal plan, so kind of what we would do if money were no object. Not necessarily we would just run like 5-minute service around the county, but what would make sense to do if money were no object. And so getting back to what our riders tell us all the time is that they really want to see frequency and span improvements. So in our optimal plan, we focus a lot on improving frequency and span, so things like adding more Sunday service, making no route run less than 30 minutes, those kind of things. And I will go into a little more. And then for our implementation plan, this is really for what we have funding to do today. So it's not those kind of optimal plan projects, but it's moving forward with, I mentioned the BRT with our smart card and mobile pay. Some of you are beta testers, so the Flamingo Fares is in testing right now. And hopefully in a few months, that'll be up and running. And then we'd like to have like a phase 2 of that where we integrate some of our U-passes and other things into the Flamingo Fares. We want to continue partnering with cities, so we partnered with a couple cities on shelter deployments and other bus stop amenities like benches. And so some of the cities, particularly St. Petersburg, have helped fund some of those shelter improvements. And it's kind of shocking how much a shelter costs and the concrete pad, and you know, so it really helps if we can have partnerships with the local jurisdictions to help us do those things. We're currently constructing, which those of you who rode the bus here today know, we are constructing an electric bus charging station out at the lay-by, so the buses have been detoured into our parking lot. So that should be done soon and will allow us to move our electric bus around to different routes and test it on different routes. Right now, electric buses only run on the circulator in downtown St. Pete, the looper, but in the future we could test them on the Route 11 or really any routes that serve the PSTA lay-by. So we're looking at that. And then, and then one other thing that we're really focused on this year is really kind of making our sustainability plan more solid. And so we kind of have we do have a sustainability plan. We have projects that we've implemented. We've improved our energy efficiency. We do a lot of things that are sustainable, but we want to formalize it within the agency and start looking at new initiatives. So that is on here as well. And then just a few more things in the implementation plan. I won't go through all of these, but one of the really important things to us, in addition to partnering with cities on amenities, we also partner with them on service. So the Jolly Trolley services, some of the cities pay into that, including the coastal route that goes all the way up to Tarpon Springs, and then the looper in downtown St. Petersburg, some agencies pay into, and then finally the beach trolley, the Central Avenue trolley, Treasure Island and St. Pete Beach help to fund that because they're not part of our taxing authority. And then in terms of those priority projects that are in the optimal plan that aren't currently funded, we have things like the frequency span improvements, more express routes. We have some capital projects. So if we want to, for example, put out more electric buses, we need more infrastructure to charge those buses. So that is a pretty big expense that we have on this list. New intermodal centers, those of you that go to Park Street know that that is really outdated and it doesn't just function as well as it could. So we're working with the city of Clearwater on an intermodal center project to make that a much nicer facility. It could be potentially in a different location. If we were to improve our frequencies a lot, we would need more buses, so we need some additional fleet, perhaps additional maintenance space. And then again, like the sustainability projects, we may want to do some really big projects like solar on the roofs, and we actually are already looking at that. But to finance that is another large expense. So anyway, that is kind of a summary of the transit development plan, and this is an action item for you to recommend approval to the board, and I will be happy to take any questions. Yes?
So what kind of, could you elaborate on technology upgrades and satellite maintenance facility?
Okay, so the technology upgrades, so as technology advances, many of our riders, I mean, hopefully some of you, use real-time technology to receive information about your routes and service. So there are certain technologies we need to upgrade so that they can keep talking to each other in the future. So I don't know the details on this. We had a discussion about it today, actually, but that's what I pretty much got out of it. And then the satellite maintenance facility, that would be if we were to increase our fleet. So let's say we increase frequency on a lot of routes, we would need more buses. They may not all fit here, the ones that need maintenance service. So we may need another location, or we may want another location that's somewhere where a lot of the buses can go and not have to drive to this facility. So that's something we're just looking at if we were to greatly expand our fleet. That's not anything we're looking at for the near term. Yes?
Hi, as a regular rider, I have never seen a bus with standing room only. Generally, the most I've ever seen is a bus that's 3/4 full. In replacing buses, are you looking at both incorporating electric every day and also in necessarily decreasing the size of these buses to make it more efficient? If you're going to run them more often, maybe they could be smaller and run more efficiently.
And we do have some smaller buses that we have been using in North County. And then I believe, and Brad can correct me if I'm wrong, that our purchase of new trolley buses, that they're a smaller size. I believe they're 35 instead of 40 foot.
Yeah, and actually, many of our regular replacement buses now are buying 35 feet long instead of 40 feet long, which have slightly fewer seats.
But we do have, there are routes that certain times of the day, the Route 52, for example, in the middle section of the route does get to standing room only. And so even if the morning or the evening, we'd have to bring a bus back and then send a different bus out. So there's just a lot of logistics.
It wouldn't be every route necessarily, but
Right.
certainly those that are less,
Yes.
less populous.
It certainly makes a difference on the capital side a little bit. On the operating side, there's not really that much of a distance. It's one engine, still one engine, one driver, still one driver, two axles, still two axles. I mean, so there's not a lot of change on the operation side from a 35 to a 45.
And even if you were go down to an Econoline or like an airport shuttle, you'd still have the driver, the fuel, the tires, it turns out, yeah.
But interestingly, the optics is a little different, though. I mean, you
Yes.
hear the people complaining and saying, oh, I see all those buses go by, they're empty, why are we spending money on transit?
Right.
But I had a question on the unfunded list. How do you, at what point does that get prioritized, or when do those things end up becoming actual projects?
So some of these are already in priority lists. We've been talking with the MPO about improving service on kind of what our next BRT routes might be. So like Route 34, there's potential that maybe we could use one of the lanes, like the kind of lane that we're using for the BRT. So the MPO would help prioritize the project. So to get state funding and federal funding, we need to be on these priority lists. So like the Clearwater Beach to TIA Express bus is on a priority list, but it hasn't received any funding yet. So, they kind of come at, some of these don't have to be on an MPO priority list, but some do. It depends what the funding source is. Some of these are our legislative priorities. And so we're trying to get federal or state funding for them. And so you would see those on our agenda for our legislative agendas. And then there are also grant opportunities that would only apply to some of these projects. For example, integrated trip planning and booking and payment app. There are some grant programs that are specifically looking to do things like that. And kind of like our some of our innovative programs, our mobility on demand, that was through grant opportunities. So we really want to kind of maintain a list to be able to pull depending on what source of funding may become available.
It says on here the facility maintenance. Is that going to be, because I know the one in Park Street is pretty bad, just like the one in Grand Central. Are they going to be working on both of them or just Grand Central?
We'd like to improve both Park Street and Grand Central. Park Street needs a higher roof to accommodate some of the newer electric buses. So that's kind of more of a, and it's also really what's out of its, useful life. So it's really a lot older than Grand Central, so that's our number one, but I would say Grand Central we would like to make improvements to as well.
If I can take one shot. What we're saying, I don't know if this is the right area, but we've been seeing around the world folks going to free bus fares, Luxembourg, Kansas City. That would require a partnership. Is there a vision for that? That would be through, they're justified by lower traffic, not building a freeway where there's
Right.
a road. Is there any move in the next 10 years looking at, would that be the Chamber of Commerce? Would that come from Tallahassee? I don't know. How did that even fit in here? I didn't see free fare being one of our unfunded priorities or partner funded. I
Yeah.
think they end up being justified.
It's not right now on this list. It is something we're kind of watching in the industry and evaluating, or we will be evaluating. Kind of an initial step to that is with, or not an initial step, but something related is the fare capping with the Flamingo fares. So
Right.
that does improve the equity. So once you reach, the value of a 31-day pass, you don't have to pay anymore for the month. So I think that's at least a step to improve the equity of the fare payment system. But yeah, we are looking at how would you fund the missing revenue and all of those things as well.
But in Florida, in order to achieve that, it'd really have to come from Tallahassee, right? It would be, yeah, or out of thin air, I guess. Okay.
I know that, like in Kansas City, they're looking at the business community to, which is similar to our UPass or corporate pass program, like we have in Colorado Beach, where the employers are paying for their people to ride. So the employees or the customers, in some cases, are riding for free.
Right.
Somebody else is paying for it.
Yeah, but it's still.
Which is kind of like what you're saying.
Yeah, or the ones where the sports ticket, if you buy a ticket to the certain game, the team
Yeah.
they know that 20% of the people are going to take the bus, so they pay a prorated amount. But in the end, someone has to pay for the gas and the tires and the driver. Okay, all right. Thanks, I was just thinking about that. Appreciate it. Are there any other questions? And if not, we have an action item to approve this and let the board know that we like it, right? And so then if I can have a motion for approval of the plan as we heard it?
Motion.
Thank you. Deborah, and a second? Teresa? Then all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? So carried.
Thank you all.
For a great presentation. Okay. No, then it's back to us.
Do you want your ambassador initiative slide?
You can watch it on YouTube.
I was going to.
Oh, the conversation, the meeting.
I hear about it now.
Drink coffee.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. So this is a continuation from our previous meeting from last month. And so this is an action item where you'll be voting on the TRAC initiatives for 2020. So just to recap, for those of you who were not here at 3 o'clock today, there was a hour-long subcommittee meeting where we met to talk about what TRAC Ambassador 2.0 would look like. Because last meeting we had talked about there's a variety of ways for TRAC members to engage with PSTA, but this meeting we used as an opportunity for us to really flesh out what that could look like. So as a part of a quick presentation update, I can give you what we talked about, but then I'll leave it to Duncan to offer any more insight. But really, this is just a recap of what we discussed in our subcommittee prior to this meeting.
And also there'll be times for you to throw in ideas. This is our last chance.
Yes,
What
yes.
we're
And this
going to
is,
vote on is the approval of the structure.
yes,
The tree, not the leaves.
correct, correct. So the two items, just as a recap, the two items for the TRAC initiatives that you all will be voting on is continuing the TRAC Star Award and then TRAC Ambassador 2.0, so elevated from the last year. And so what Ambassador 2.0 looks like. We had this levels of ambassadorship is what we discussed, because engaging on social media is different from going out into the community and bringing PSTA and tabling there, right? So we wanted to make sure that we recognize all the different levels of engagement with PSTA. So for level 1, and anyone who was at that meeting or has thoughts, feel free to jump in and correct or add anything if I missed anything in my recap. So level 1 ambassadorship, this is more of the easier type of engagement where you don't have to do too much work out in the community, bringing us, organizing an event. This is really something you can do from the comfort of your own home, from your computer, from your phone, even while you're on the bus. Engage with PSTA social media, whether that's liking, commenting, sharing a page, following PSTA, doing anything that engages with PSTA on social media is considered a level 1 engagement. We also have suggesting events for PSTA to attend. Edwin said earlier, like, oh, are you getting the emails about SPC welcome back events? So making sure, suggesting to us, like, hey, PSTA should be at something like this. Here's the event, here's some contact information. I'd love to see you there. Right, this is level 1 type of engagement. We talked about needing social media training. What we can say as TRAC members, think about sunshine laws, keeping everything in the sunshine. So just understanding what are PSTA social media and how to engage with it. So that's what we talked about with level 1.
Right, so we're talking about having an actual training session either as part of the meeting or pre-meeting next, no, as part of the meeting.
As part of the meeting.
Right,
Yeah,
and so that
training.
way, because this one, you're on your own, so you probably need a little guidance that you.
Yeah, for those of you who don't use Facebook or Instagram or Twitter a lot, here's we can talk about some tips and tricks and like how to share a post, things like that if you're not as familiar, because I know some of us.
We included in level one, just telling people, hey, or asking, you guys are having the wine festival, or so, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
It's just this idea of it being very low. I happened to be there, I was talking to the guy.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna tell you back.
Yeah, exactly. Level 2 takes a little bit more effort. This is one where PSTA is present. Juan, myself, Bob are out at a community event. Brad's hosting a town hall at the end of this month, and we're inviting you to join us. Come, whether that means that you're attending as a supporter of PSTA, as a TRAC member, as an ambassador, or whether that's working with us at the table. So we have had folks who've come and done surveys for us on our bus routes, or made sure that folks knew that service changes were happening, service change outreach, come to a PSTA table and help us, because when we have it's a large event and only one of us out of the team of 3 can be there, it's really helpful to have someone present who knows our bus service, who can answer questions about bus service, maybe using transit app. Those are the sort of questions that we get when we go to community events.
And we also included in that attending the Pride Parade,
Yeah.
attending the different community events. And the beauty of this stuff is that PSTA drives it. It was what we called Ambassador last year, the whole program. We're getting an email. It's up to you guys to let us know what's going on. And we'll just,
Yeah, exactly. And this is what my note for myself is updated PSTA events reported at each meeting.
Yep.
So maybe at each meeting, we could say, hey, here is what's coming up this month. We'd love for you to sign up if you're interested. Talk to Juan or myself. We'll get you.
we just make sure you have all our emails for the meeting. So, yeah,
Yes,
there you go.
yes. So assuming, if things are before the meeting, we'll email it out to you, but really just every meeting, keeping you updated on things that you can participate in with us.
It's easy peasy.
And then level 3 is like extra, you're going above and beyond for PSTA, bringing us to you. One of the suggestions was having a snack and learn or lunch and learn at your job, where you're talking about PSTA. So bring us into your workplace where we can tell your fellow coworkers about how to ride the bus, or about PSTA and all the services that we have to offer. It could look like, your neighborhood association meeting, your condo association meeting, bringing us in to do a presentation about PSTA. Maybe you have some neighbors who you're like, you could probably learn or benefit from PSTA. Let me invite them here. And then my level up notes, there was some interest in even presenting on behalf of PSTA and not even asking us to come out, because it's a small meeting, maybe there's just a few of you, you feel confident enough in your own abilities and knowledge about PSTA that you're willing to give the presentation yourself. Like, that's not an expectation on any of you, but if you would like to do that, we can train you and provide you the resources that you need to be able to do that. I know we had some interest expressed in that, but that's more of like, I guess, 3.5, level 3.5. But where we can, 3+, where we can provide you those resources as well as training so that you can feel comfortable and confident. But we are happy to also go and do the presentation if you want to just attend and you're like, hey, let me introduce PSTA and we can come and speak about it. We are more than happy to do that.
Nicole, the thought I had, and those of you who are here, I don't want to be redundant, was that this is fairly nebulous, but the idea was as the year progressed, while we heard different people did different things, it would sort of grow and become focused. Whoever does something first in the first month, the intent is at the end of each month, we'll be reporting on these. When we hear it, we'll sort of figure this one out as we go. They're just ideas that as you're going along, you think, boy, I want to do this. I want to tell my club about this, or I want to put these maps up at my condo or at my office or whatever. I'll ask you guys to help me. When we're done, we all take a little bow, and then the rest of us here, yeah, hey, that's a good idea.
Right, because we're putting this in your hands. Like, if you have something, we won't create these level 3 type of events. We're leaving that up for you to decide how you want to engage us in your daily life already.
And this is absolutely 2.0. This was the new idea that we would be driving. So,
Yeah. But Brad sponsors it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Request Brad at your event.
Right. Well, the one thing I was going to say is, I don't know if any of the newer members, there's no requirements on all of this, but so often, I mean, even a couple years back, we were always like, well, we want to do more than just approve things. We love transit. We love our buses. We want our system to be good and healthy. We want to talk to the people out there. And so we've been asking them for tools that help us to do what we're already doing probably, is talking with people at bus stops and people in our condo associations and so forth.
Correct, and especially hearing why people don't use buses.
And hearing
I
that
would like
they
to
don't,
know.
Yeah.
bring that back.
Absolutely. And what you hear, bring that back. And so we're talking about a tracking list. So we're tracking your engagement. So at the end of every month's meeting, we'll make an agenda item. That way it's a recap. If anyone has anything they'd like to share, maybe we pass out a sheet. We'll develop that a little bit further, because we want to make sure that we're recognizing that your contribution as well. And so we want to see, like, when did you do it? What's the date? What's the event? We'll figure out how to track that.
And then also, that's this way of those ideas growing, as people, the other column, when someone writes something, yeah, that's a great idea, that now becomes a column. It becomes.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's.
And then the other thing.
If it seems nebulous, it's because it's nebulous.
Yeah. And then one last thing as well, we talked about rewards, competition, goals, incentives, like what do we want to do to make this something that is ongoing, happening? Like how are we incentivizing folks? I know Gloria brought up rewarding, or maybe it's a competition, goals. We didn't want to define that for the
Why,
group.
yeah. PSTA can pay for that, right?
By bus.
We didn't define what that looks like, but if everyone supports that, supports like establishing a baseline level of, how many types of engagements do we want to see? At least, 1 level 1, 3 level 1s, level 2 engagement, I think that should be for the TRAC to decide. So we did not flush that out in our subcommittee, so I'm not sure how to proceed with that. But I know that for our action item, this is the recap of what you'll be voting on, TRAC Star Award, and the Ambassador 2.0 with these 3 levels. So this is the action item to vote on your initiatives for 2020. It is March. Let's keep it moving. You only have till the end of the year.
Yeah. And does anyone have any questions, ideas?
Yeah.
Or,
I'll leave that to you.
with this structure, certainly, the idea of 1, 2, and 3. Thoughts? Yeah. Ideas, thoughts, feedback.
Anyone?
Too much, too overwhelming?
I was just going to add a point. So it isn't overwhelming. The TRAC Star, is my view, okay, I love TRAC Star, obviously, but that's an ongoing thing. Whenever we see something that works for that, we can follow up on that. But the ambassador program is, it really, what we were talking about was kind of like whatever size fits you best. If you can do one thing, if you can just make it an effort to, write some, post some things on Facebook or Twitter, I don't know. And if that's all that you want to be able to do besides coming to the TRAC meeting, that's fine. And so it doesn't have to be overwhelming, and same thing with the TRAC Star Awards. Like, if you have something to recommend, then great. If not, then no big deal either.
And I saw it primarily, I've said this an hour ago, as a way to keep PSTA kind of on the hook, that we would have this enthusiastic idea. I remember when I first wanted the card, before I asked you guys, I printed my own cards, so I could pass them out on the bus, and later we said, would you guys do it? And you did. Gee, someone ought to give a presentation here. Who would I ask? Well, now we now have a structure, whether it's asking you guys to do it, what we're calling level 1, or if I want to end up doing it, and we're going to call it level 3, or whatever. The idea is, as we wander around looking at TRAC Star opportunities or these opportunities, I like to think we're all enthusiastic. And now we just have someone to call and sort of say, like, could this, rather than being oughta, shoulda, coulda, mighta, could we actually turn it into something concrete? And that's where ambassadors came from. Lori, it's a great point. Channel our enthusiasm. Then, any other questions, ideas, thoughts? If not, then shall we just vote to approve that structure and get it launched, and we'll start it this year? Then if so, can I get a motion to approve the structure? Andrea?
Yeah.
We have a motion, and then a second? Second? And then all in favor? Can I hear aye? Aye. And any opposed? And carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you. Well, then we are early. This is great. Everybody write today's date down.
These cards for-
What? Yeah, it's time for vendor comments. Let's start with that one.
Well, that's not mine. I mean,
Oh.
that's just, but the-
Sitting in front of you,
Yeah.
thank you, Marianne. Have passed out, some of you have these already, or they're new. If they're new to you, the cards that you can carry, it's sort of a business card. In back, you'll notice there's blank spots for you if you want to write your name, or if your email or something. But it's the idea when you're on a bus to say, hey, you should run for TRAC, or if you have a complaint or you're worried or an idea to that other person, they now have a way, rather than telling them, you ought to call somebody, you ought to talk to somebody. Now you have a way to tell.
Engage.
So carry those with you. Please, comments?
Yes, how can we recruit more ambassadors by incentivizing city, county, and state employees to use public transit? In terms of central meeting points, good place to park, reduced fare, anything to get the people who work in public service, like myself, actually use the bus. I'm the only one in a 120-plus member department that uses public transportation, or for the county. And I am the only person.
No, that's a
Only
good
one.
one. That's
Huge opportunity. You should give discounts to public servants. We do?
Yeah, the city of St. Petersburg employees ride for free.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And we've been negotiating, we need to restart those negotiations with the county
Yay.
about having a similar program with the county.
I have brought this up before, but I'll bring it up since you're here. I work for a PCPAO. New building's going up 34th Street. Tax collector or DMV downstairs, we're going to be upstairs.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah, that's us.
I know where that is.
Wouldn't it be really great if there was a giant visual map, similar to the New York City subway map, that's sort of very simple, very colorful? You can get there from here, with bus schedules and just information about, PSTA in the new building. There's lots of walls. There's plenty of room to put it.
Before they
It's a
fill up.
great idea.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Marketing is listening.
And by the way, if we can get that, think that it can go in at Jabil and at Raymond James and at,
Of course.
Home Shop.
And
well,
I
guess
think
not
the
Home
thing to
Shopping,
do is to
but-
approach both, Charles Thomas is the tax collector, and Mike Woody, who's the property appraiser, and say, hey, guys, come on. People really do ride buses.
Or should.
Should.
Or should, yeah.
Should.
All one of
Could.
me, but yeah. Right? Okay.
Other member comments? Thank you very much. Is there any other business? Just the meetings, the charrette this Friday for the 62nd Street T-Barda. If you've signed up from the email, and then we have the Safe Streets is in,
Down the 31st.
the week after next.
Do
which is in
sign up for those in advance, so they can expect you. The Safe Streets Pinellas at this point is sold out.
For a
so
free
it's,
ticket, but-
standing and spray, it's free, but it's,
Yeah.
It's booked, yeah.
it's booked. You can get on a wait list, and you can get a standing room only ticket. So, but don't worry too, there's more walking around and mingling than sitting, so it's not really a big deal to have a standing room only ticket.
Yeah, I've
Or if
been
you
to
bring
the-
your own seat with you.
I was, I always bring my chair. I can actually walk just fine. You see, don't
I have 2 recommendations.
Oh, please.
Yeah, okay. Has anyone from PSTA ever partnered with AARP to bring our message to older riders, like at the Sunshine Center? And have a meeting, with AARP and to meet with older riders, because frequently they're the ones who need public, because they don't drive so much.
Don't drive.
I'd be willing to do that, Sunshine Center right by me at Mirror Lake.
Oh, well, yeah.
Been to the
Exactly,
Sunshine
yeah.
Center, yes.
I think we should partner with AARP and just have a ongoing public transportation seminars, discussions, how do you use it, how do you ride it, how do you pay for it, yada, yada, yada.
I'll probably tell you the last time we've been there, but we do go there often. It's a great idea. We'd love to have you
I'll be there,
there.
the one at Mirror Lake.
Yes.
Yep. You got it.
Just
The
in-
kind of bus pass that is the fastest growing bus pass is our reduced fare senior citizen fare.
Okay, that's good to know.
Nice.
Yeah. And then if you want to do it on Saturday, because I gotta work, but yeah, it's okay. I'll show up on Saturday.
Great. Also, we have on March 27th, it's a Friday, our illustrious CEO will be out at the Clearwater Transit Center for a rider town hall.
You can get a level 2.
2:30 to 4:30.
What
What day
what
is
is
that? That's
that?
on the,
I think we got
I
an
mean,
email, right?
March 26th.
what
What
is
is
the,
it?
what is the event?
So, every so often, we go out to a transit center. We always pick the Clearwater Beach Transit Center at spring break, but we'll go out to Park Street or Grand Central, and Brad will just be there to answer questions, talk to people, so we'll have staff out there asking people about their experience, and just general opportunity for riders to talk to staff.
So this is not
Something-
like a
I
press
think that's out at the
conference, this is
No.
like a handshake and walk around?
Yeah, just a meet and greet. Or maybe
fantastic.
with coronavirus, we'll just like elbow length.
elbow.
But
Yeah.
we have like our regular riders that will take a bus all the way across the county to come yell at me or,
It could be.
yeah.
And this is in the downtown Clearwater hub, right? Not
No,
Clearwater
Clearwater Beach.
Clearwater Beach.
Right out there on the beach, because right now, you know, it's
Down
our spring
Memorial
break, so
Causeway.
that all the trolleys are free. People are parking their car in downtown Clearwater and taking the trolleys over to the beach to avoid parking. So in years past, we've met people from Nebraska and other places that are taking the trolley for the first time, you know, who are on vacation. So it's kind of Canada, yeah. Yeah.
Actually, on that note, if anyone would like to support the outreach team in doing surveys out at Clearwater Beach, we're there every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So if that's something that interests you, you like being up in Clearwater, you want to be out on the beach doing surveys, and want to get another level 2 opportunity, let Juan and I know, and we'll make sure you have the materials ready.
Marianne, why don't we take
Yes.
all these announcements, let's put them in an email so that
Yeah.
make
Exactly.
it all consolidated so that everybody can remember
Okay.
all the opportunities, because there is a lot of opportunity to go out with the public engagement team to help us survey people who are taking our spring break service. So we give that information to the city of Clearwater every year about who's riding, what was the total ridership numbers, and that's how we're getting their support on that.
Right, I was gonna say, that's gotta help with the grants that they give back or the other stuff.
Well, they pay, for we work out with them how we want to add service during this time, during the promotion, and they pay half and we pay half. So that,
Yeah.
all of that additional service is highly supported by the city of Clearwater.
And if I can apologize, I didn't know the difference between the Clearwater Beach hub versus the Clearwater hub, so if you'll help me.
I just had one more date, March 18th, that is Wednesday, it's Transit Driver Appreciation Day, so thank your drivers.
Hug your driver.
Ride on Wednesday.
Elbow.
Elbow, that's right, yeah.
A week from Wednesday, not tomorrow, but the following Wednesday.
Yes, not tomorrow, the following Wednesday, just thank your driver, say hello, let them know that you appreciate them, and their great
Yeah.
services.
I
Send them a
still want
cookie
there
or
to be
hand
names on the
sanitizer.
buses so that you can say,
Sanitizer.
thank you, Joe, thank you, Mary, thank you, even if it's not their real name. Yeah.
All right, is that, any other,
Just say thank you, Mary, thank you, Joe.
They'll be like, who are you talking to?
No.
all right, and if there's no other, any other business or comments, then let's call for adjournment, right?
Wow.
Meeting adjourned, thanks. See you guys in a month. Actually, in 6 weeks, we're a little early,
Yes,
this, right, April 14th.
You're right. There you go. You're plug your right too.
Right.
Well, fine.
A whole hour before that, let's be honest. Let's be honest.
I know, he's tired.
Thanks, Dave.
Nice to see you.
I don't know if we should do this every time.
I know.
Right, 1 hour pre-work.
Hey, no, it's not fair. This one's easier now. Everything's all set in place. Pretty much. Sort of base too with this.